sports, a bridge that brings people together. And here in the Commonwealth, it's no different. From the gridiron to the hardwood and beyond, we all have a team we love to talk about. Now for the teams you care about, here's Heartland Sports Live with Trevor Rice.
And welcome into another edition of Heartland Sports Live as we welcome you back from the Thanksgiving break. Trevor Rice in with you in this hour presented by CC Power Sports, which they are located just one exit south of the Snyder at Brooks Road off I-65. As we have some stuff to talk about. Of course, North Hardin was in action on Friday night. Their season came to an end. We'll talk about that here in just a bit. The Tennessee Titans are starting to win now, and maybe becoming a threat in the AFC South. We'll talk about that as they beat the Indianapolis Colts over the weekend. Western Kentucky, after losing to Arkansas State earlier this in the season, or no, not Arkansas State, Central Arkansas. Wow, where am I going? They lost to Central Arkansas in the beginning portion of the season. Finished the season 8-4 with a win over Middle Tennessee State. We'll talk about that game later on in the hour as well. Of course, next week we'll begin getting into the full swing of basketball as our Hardin County High School basketball season begins on Friday. And so be expecting that as it'll be presented by Bland and Birdwist. We'll get into more details about that. Like I said, next Monday, I think, is when we're going to start getting really deep into the basketball talk because, well, we've got some teams in the area who I think are going to make a threat on the hardwood, not only in the 17th district, making some noise there, but also 5th region play once we get there. So we'll talk about that and what we expect from all of our area school teams on the boys and girls side, because we bring in boys and girls basketball action here on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 on the AM side, and we'll live stream every game on ESPN Radio 1061.com. So action from the hardwood, we'll talk about that beginning next Monday, and then we'll go all the way through March with that because, well, it's basketball season. Wildcats, Cardinals, Hilltoppers basketball teams already in full swing, but we're still in football season, people. This is the beginning part of December. We're still talking a lot of football. We're going to have this show be dedicated to that. And let's talk about Thanksgiving real quick. How many of you gained a pound or two? Well, if you can believe it or not, somebody in the room, which I'm just solo here in the studio today, I lost a couple of pounds, if you can believe that. I'm on a diet, and I felt like I ate a lot for what a normal human should over the break, and I still somehow lost some weight. So that was pretty impressive on my behalf, just being able to say that, well, the diet is apparently working because, well, I ended up losing a little bit. So I guess for all of us who are preparing for the new year to get here and New Year's resolutions flying, because I'm sure everybody's going to want to lose some weight. That's just the way it goes. Knock on wood, I continue this trend of going down, because that's where I would like to continue going. So hopefully your Thanksgiving plans went well. The travel back and forth from my home state was not good. Hit winter weather between Indianapolis and Champaign, Illinois on the way there last weekend, and on the way back yesterday. It seemed like there was like a drizzle or light rain pretty much off and on the entire stretch. Yes, like 3 or 4 different states. It was terrible. Miserable, and especially in between Indianapolis and Louisville, because those people who like to speed and go really fast, like we're talking like 15 miles per hour at least above the speed limit, they were not doing so last night. When there's a few drops on the windshield, people are slowing it down. Meanwhile, I'm still trucking along at the speed I want to go at, and they're just in my way. I just wanted to get home last night, people. Well, let's go ahead and get into the sports side of things. I do hope your Thanksgiving went well. And one team that, well, Black Friday was, I guess, black for the North Hardin Trojans. It was not a good outing. They went up 7-0 to begin things on Friday night, and then, well, Trinity out of Louisville forced some errors on the part of North Hardin, and they just took over the game. That offense, I believe, is for real. And I really think that North Hardin, up until that point, had never seen a team with the speed and the athletes that Trinity possesses, and I think the male Trinity rematch, I think there's going to be, a lot of people going to that game over in Lexington, which isn't that kind of funny how you have two teams from Louisville playing in Lexington. I think I don't know, I just find that to be funny, especially the hatred that Lexington people and Louisville people have towards each other, especially on the college side, which we'll talk about that matchup as well. I didn't forget about that. The Wildcats Cardinals game over the weekend. There was some trash talking going on between some people I know here in the state. Maybe they were throwing out a couple of jabs here and there. And let's just say one fan base had to go back and eat their words, because it was a matchup that I'm going to be talking about here in a little while. So you want to hear that talk, and it's too bad I don't have any fans to actually talk to about that one, because I think as a fan of the game, a fan of the team, we go into rivalry week, spewing a bunch of garbage that we may not even actually believe ourselves, but we just want to spew some stuff out there just to try to get under the skin of the opposing team's fan base. And then when our team goes out and chokes, just loses, it just makes us look dumb. I've been guilty of it in the past. I think we all have. If we're a diehard college fan, I think we've all done that. We'll talk about that coming up a little bit later. Let's get to this North Hardin Trojans talk, though, because this team, even though they did have one loss, it didn't come until the fourth round of the playoffs, people. That's a pretty phenomenal season that Brent Thompson and this football club put together. Ended up finishing the season at 13-1, as Trinity and Mail will be playing each other in the championship game. 54-7 was the final score on Friday, as the North Hardin Trojans ended up falling to Trinity, the Rocks. And let's just go ahead. Let's look at that match real quick. I actually don't have any stats up right now, but if I get those stats, oh yes, I do have some stats. Let's go ahead and look at these stat lines. At least from the Trinity side, they're up, because Nathan McElroy, he was pretty efficient on Friday night for Trinity, going 14 of 16. North Hardin, on their quarterback situation, Manny Wimberly down with an injury, so you have to put Coleman in there, and I don't know. I don't know if having Manny Wimberly in that game was going to make a difference one way or another. I don't know if you can necessarily say that, even though, a lot of fans will say, well, our primary quarterback wasn't in there. I don't know if 54-7, if a quarterback is going to make a difference in that type of game. Just listening to the game, I want to thank Bobby Thompson for doing play-by-play, and then Mike Matheson of the News Enterprise, who came in and helped out with color commentary. I want to thank those boys for taking over while I was out on vacation. And they did a phenomenal job on Friday night on KMO Country 99.3, and also our game was live streamed on ESPN Radio 1061.com. I just don't know if having your primary quarterback was going to make a difference in that game, especially the way that Trinity came out, and they may have been down 7-0, but ever since that point, they straight up punched North Hardin in the mouth, if we want to be honest. And we're all about honesty on this show. McElroy, 14 of 16, had 167 yards through the air, and also had 2 touchdowns. It was the running game from Armin Tucker. 16 rushes, 151 yards on Friday night, had 3 scores. When you have that kind of productivity out of your backfield, and then you have 57 yards from Brad West, 238 total yards on the ground for the Rocks on Friday night. So that was pretty impressive in and of itself. And just listening to the game, you just kind of felt like that the line of scrimmage was being owned by Trinity. When we've been talking about the entire season, North Hardin was doing that to opposing teams. Those big boys up front, which Octavius Oxendine ending his career on Friday night. He'll be going to the next level and announcing this month at some point to when he'll be going. I think it's it's December. So I can't remember what the date is, but he announced that he is going to be going, and where he's going, whether it be Kentucky, Tennessee, wherever it may be, he's going to be playing some college ball at the D1 level, and he is going to be making some noise. He is a big boy, but he is fast. And so the senior group this season, Darren Green and so many others who were on this year's team, I just got to say that those boys pretty much set the tone for what is expected at North Hardin High School this season. But 238 yards from Trinity on the ground, 167 through the air. Just looking at the overall way the game went, Lavelle Wright just could never get going in this game. In fact, Trinity only allowing 39 yards rushing on Friday night against that North Hardin team. So when you make North Hardin one-sided like they did, you knew it was going to be trouble. North Hardin had 167 passing yards on Friday night. Like I said, 238 yards on the ground from Trinity, in which when you're able to just ground and pound like that, take over the line of scrimmage and start to wear on your opponent. North Hardin's been doing that to teams this entire season. And then Trinity just came out and punched them in the mouth. Now, if there was a rematch, I'm sure Brent Thompson, head football coach, and this group, they would respond differently. But this Trinity club was just at a different level from what North has been facing this season. And you could say that, Trinity was the better team, but I certainly believe that North has the talent to compete with Trinity. I just do. There's too many players who are going on to the next level on this North Hardin team. They're going to be able to compete with a Trinity club. I think there was just too many errors on the part of North Hardin, and just not being able to control the football like they usually did. I think just came back and hurt them. But you gotta tip your cap to what Trinity did on Friday night. When you're able to rush for 200 plus yards on this defense that North Hardin has presented, where let's go back. I can't even remember what was the highest score that North Hardin actually allowed on defense this season. 20 points was the highest amount that anybody had scored on North Hardin, and that wasn't even on necessarily this Trojans defense. PRP back November 1st, 48-20. 20 points was the most that anybody had even thought about scoring on this North Hardin team. You look at this postseason from the North Hardin defense. 0 against Barron County, 7 against Central Hardin. And you know what their offense was capable of and their weapons. You get Gavin George out on the edge, Deonka Wilkerson in the backfield, and you just let Chase Elmore just take control of that offense. That is not an easy task, holding Central to 0 in the first outing, 7 in the playoff rematch. McCracken County, only 2 points. They took a 2-0 lead and then 38 unanswered from North Hardin to win that game in Radcliffe a couple of weeks ago. And then you try to bottle up all of that emotion, all of the highs of what this season has given you, and you know that your next game there is a championship awaiting you. And Trinity, they just took it. They straight up took it on Friday night and never looked back. After they went down 7-0, they were just like in the huddle, I'm guessing on the sideline, saying, "Look, boys, we are going to be the better team." And then they rattled off 54 unanswered. North Hardin just never had an answer for anything after taking that 7-0 lead in the first quarter. It was 7-6 at the end of the first quarter, people. So that just lets you know how much in control Trinity was from that point forward. I think it was 19-7, 26-7, I think, at halftime. Yeah, I think Manny Wimberly obviously was missed because I feel like he was a big play. He's capable of producing some big plays, especially to Josh Moore in that game. But I don't think a quarterback is going to make up that kind of deficit. I think there was way too many mistakes, way too many opportunities for Trinity in that ball game Friday night to just take over, put the pedal to the metal, and just go with it. That defensive front was just getting worn down. And when you allow, like I said, 238 yards on the ground from your opponent, something we had never seen throughout the entire stretch of the season. We couldn't even imagine somebody rushing for 100 on this North Hardin defense, let alone 238 yards. When you're able to milk the clock and control the game like that and wear your opponent down, and at that point, if you're North Hardin, you got to change up your scheme a little bit defensively, because now they're starting to take advantage of you between the tackles, and now you got to bring up you got to have your linebackers ready to go, maybe bring up a safety. And all of a sudden you're trying to load the box. Well, now you get one-on-one coverage out on the edge. And Trinity has just as lethal as receivers as they do running backs. And when they did throw the football, they were effective. A couple of touchdowns, like I said, 14 of 16. They're not bad. They're not a bad team. So you got to tip your cap to Trinity, who will be taking on Mail in the 6A championship game this Sunday at 2 p.m. And I think that's the rematch that everybody in Louisville wanted, because it was a tight one that went into overtime during the regular season. And now everybody's going to see, all the Louisville people are going to see this rematch that they've been waiting for, which went to, it was 20-17, double overtime earlier this season, back on September 20th. So it's been a long time coming between these two programs. Heck, I'd almost want to go to that game just to watch it. It sounds like it's going to be a fantastic contest. But regardless, basketball season begins for us here on the Hardin County side of things. 17th District play. We're going to be covering all of the big matchups this season, and we'll talk about that more on Monday on the next Heartland Sports Live as we get into basketball season, covering boys and girls basketball, John Hardin, North Hardin, Central Hardin, and Elizabethtown. And I've already talked to one coach. I plan on talking to a few more about the season and what they expect. I don't know. We're gonna see who. Of course, the John Hardin, they're coming off of last year where they went undefeated all the way through the 5th region tournament and then lost in the opening round. So the players who were making a return on that roster have that in the back of their head. Now, are they going to go undefeated this season? Probably not. There's a reason. There's a reason why a team only goes undefeated so many times, people. In fact, the last time was the 80s when that had happened. The thing that annoyed me about that whole thing was the disrespect from media outlets in the city. We're talking Louisville here. Talking about, is this John Hardin team actually for real? Yeah, they're undefeated, but who have they faced? If it is so easy in this state to go undefeated, and I promised I was going to talk basketball next week, but this has me going now. If it is so easy to go undefeated during a basketball season, all the extra games you may schedule, especially during the holiday break, the tournaments you participate in, if it is so easy to go undefeated, why do we not have a team in the state doing it every single year? Why do we have to date ourselves back a couple of decades, 2.5 decades, to actually find a team who did it? If it's so easy to do. So regardless of what their schedule is like, which they had some easier teams, but like every schedule, you're going to have some more difficult opponents on it. They still found a way to win every single game. And here in the 17th District, a team may be down, but these teams are so familiar with each other. These kids are so familiar with each other that it is not easy beating the rivals here in Hardin County. So for you to sweep it, I know Elizabethtown girls basketball has been saying this, has been doing this for years. But on the boys' side, for that to happen, the amount of competition that happens here in Hardin County on the boys' side, it's just that's just ridiculous to say that you don't respect what John Hardin did last year and going undefeated through the 5th region. So we'll talk more about the high school basketball season come next week. We still have a lot to talk about this hour. Pro football, college football, of course, Kentucky, Louisville in action on over the weekend. Tennessee Titans, they finally they defeated the Indianapolis Colts. We'll get into that matchup. Western Kentucky, as they end their season at 8-4, and 3 solid victories to close out the season, defeating Arkansas, Southern Mississippi, and then Middle Tennessee at home over the weekend. We'll get into that and kind of see where that team may be going, and also whatever else that may come to mind. We'll talk Cats, Cards, Titans. We'll get into all that. It's Heartland Sports Live, presented by CC Power Sports, and it's on 106.1 ESPN Radio.
Glorious. No, I won't give in till I'm victorious.
Welcome back into Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 AM. We are live streaming on ESPN Radio 1061.com. Hopefully everybody made it back from the extended holiday break all right. I know that I'm adjusting to being back at work. I took the entire week off last week. So when you do that, you feel refreshed, but you also feel kind of out of place coming back to work because you're still, in my case, I'm playing catch up on so many things, and on top of doing shows and such. So it's still kind of weird for me. I think everything will start to become normal maybe tomorrow or Wednesday. At least I'm hoping. Just a little bit. Hey, it's Trevor Rice with you. Let's go ahead and tell you this hour is presented by CC Power Sports. Once again, you can find them just south of the Snyder, off of Brooks Road, off I-65, as you can take advantage of their deals right now. That's CC Power Sports off I-65, one exit south of the Snyder. Let's go ahead and let's see, we've talked about North Hardin this hour. Let's get into the college side of things, because I know a lot of people were tuned into that Kentucky and Louisville matchup. That game was not even close on Saturday, people. It wasn't. Cardinals fans, and I saw a few of them who were posting, man, they were talking trash the entire week, and then all of a sudden, Kentucky, they brought it. They brought it on Saturday. They were at home, and they wanted to let Louisville know that they were not welcomed into their home. I'm just going to throw that out there. Kentucky, 45-13 on Saturday. 7-6. It was a tight one early. 7-6 after the first quarter, 17-13 at halftime. But then the second half happened. What happened? Cardinals fans, what happened? Both teams finished the season now 7-5 after the Cardinals loss. But what happened? 28 points from Kentucky in that second half. 14 in the third quarter, 14 in the fourth quarter, third and fourth quarter, so 14 apiece. 45-13. It seemed like, and I guess we've seen this trend sort of, where Louisville they'll stick around and do some damage in the first half, and then the second half appears and they just kind of slow down. But I don't think we've ever seen it this bad in any of the Cardinals matchups. 14 points in each quarter. Let's just look at the stat line here for Kentucky. Lynn Bowden, he did a lot of running. And I mean a lot of running on Saturday. 22 carries, averaged 12.9 yards a carry. Okay, if you're Louisville at this point, you know what Kentucky is doing. You know that they have not been passing much at all this season. Lynn Bowden, 22 carries, 284 yards averaged 12.9 a carry. 4 touchdowns on Saturday. How? That's my question. How? How does Louisville allow that to happen? You knew the game plan going into this game was Kentucky was not going to be passing a whole lot. They've been doing it every single week, just running the football. Lynn Bowden, ever since taking over. Well, let's just talk about that for a second. Kentucky, basically one-sided. They are only a running team this season. Finished the 2019 regular season 7-5. Now, granted, they had a couple of cupcakes in there, so I get that. But this team still got 7 victories, some of those against Power 5 conference teams, when everybody knew going into the game that was going to be a one-sided offense, running the football. There was no passing. Yes, Lynn Bowden, I guess, did have a couple of passes this year. But you knew he wasn't going to do anything with the football through the air in this one. For him to get 284 yards, and then you allow Chris Rodriguez to get 125 yards off of 9 carries? What? How does that happen? He averaged 13.9 on Saturday with 1 touchdown. I don't even know how that happens. But Louisville, I gotta tip my cap to this coaching staff. They came in. It was a complete dumpster fire a year ago. What were they, 3-9 Louisville was? To come back and put Louisville in a bowl game, 7-5, having a chance to go to 8-4 on the year if they would have beaten Kentucky on Saturday. Heck, you got to tip your cap to this coaching staff. They had this team competitive in a lot of their games. If you can wipe out the second half of this Kentucky game. But in ACC play, they were competitive in a lot of their games this season. And even the games where it ended up being a lopsided affair, you can easily say that Louisville, they gave enough effort that they probably could have kept that even closer and maybe in one. The score wasn't indicating where that game actually was overall if you were watching a few of them this season. So I mean, you got to clap your hand. You got to give a golf clap to what Satterfield and this coaching staff for Louisville, what they did this season. Lynn Bowden, though, Chris Rodriguez, when you're able to rush for 400 plus yards from 2 guys, there's a serious issue there, people. And actually had over 500 yards rushing. Because Smoke had 2 carries for 75 yards. Rose had 7 carries for 33. That's still averaging 4.7. He had a touchdown on Saturday as well. That is insane. That is insane that you put up over 500 yards of offense with just the running game. Let's look at the stat line for Louisville on Saturday. Malik Cunningham went 6 of 11, had 78 yards, had a touchdown and INT in there. Evan Conley in there, 4 of 8, 31 yards. Javian Hawkins, he was doing some work too on the ground. 22 carries, 142 yards, averaged 6.5 per carry, 1 touchdown on Saturday. Everybody else was kind of struggling in the ground game. But Hawkins, the one guy who did show up offensively for this Cardinals club, Chatarius Atwell had 4 catches for 57 yards and a touchdown on Saturday, averaged 14.2 per catch. Des Fitzpatrick had 3 catches for 36 yards for the Cardinals on Saturday. So aside from like 3 or 4 guys, maybe putting in some work for the Cardinals on Saturday, they struggled, especially in that second half. They kept it close there through the first 30 minutes, but the second 30 minutes, they say a tale of 2 halves. It was definitely that on Saturday with that Wildcats and Cardinals game. And the funny thing for me is when that game is happening, seeing the reaction on social media, especially after the game, because I saw that there was some Cardinals fans who said they were talking trash like the entire week, which is rivalry week. I mean, you should, right? You hate the other team. If you're a Wildcats fan, you hate the Cardinals. If you're a Cardinals fan, you hate the Wildcats. You should talk trash. But just know that when you do, you open yourself up for some major criticism, and you kind of get slapped in the face when it's all said and done. Even though physically you were not slapped, you feel like you've been slapped in the face. Because you open yourself up. The moment you start talking trash on the opposing team, if your friends notice that, they remember that, and then they come back at you. Believe me, I've dealt with it. I've seen it firsthand. I've experienced it. When you start talking trash during rivalry week, you better hope your team shows up on game day, because if they don't, that fan base on the other side, they're going to be letting you know you kind of messed up just a little bit. But I think that's the fun of rivalry week. I think you have to talk trash. You can't hold back. You can't be reserved. That's what makes rivalries fun, when the fan bases go at it, not necessarily the teams. Even though you want your team to have the same passion as you do about this rivalry game, which I think for the most part the players do. I don't think, either one looks to the opposing one and say, "Hey, we're just going to give you 4 quarters here of play, and then we're all going to go home and drink our tea." No, they're nothing. There's nothing like that. Kentucky on Saturday is like, look, this team from the other city, they're coming in our house, and we're going to smack them around a little bit. And they didn't smack them around. Kentucky didn't know. They did not smack Louisville around. On Saturday, they ran over them. Literally and figuratively. Ran over them. 500 plus yards on the ground. That's inexcusable. How does that happen? You knew going into this game, Louisville, that is, that Kentucky is one-dimensional. They don't have a passing game. You knew going into the game that was going to be a running team, and you still allowed over 500 yards. Like, I'm a Nebraska fan. That takes me back to the 90s. That's Nebraska football right there, where they just ran an option or ran it right down your throat, and they didn't care what the result was. If it looked like you were bruised up, bloodied after the matchup, they didn't care, because they just ran you over and took advantage of your weakness. And that was apparently your entire defense, which maybe that's what Kentucky did on Saturday. I have no idea. That was a car crash that you look. I saw a car crash in Des Moines this past week. I could say that this game, especially in the second half, may have been just as bad. Okay, maybe not as bad, but still. Wow. 45-13 on Saturday, the Wildcats win. Let's talk about with the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. After facing Central Arkansas and losing in the fourth quarter earlier this season, everybody thought the season's over. Heck, I was looking at this team and was like, is this team just going to play like this? Is this going to be a continuing theme? They were kind of hovering around the 500 mark there through the first half of the season. And then came the second half. In particular, Arkansas. I kind of expected Western Kentucky to compete in that game. I didn't know they were going to come out and straight up punch Arkansas in the face and knock them out with one hit. 45-19 back on November 9th. They get the bye week. They knew they had actually had gotten bowl eligibility after that game. 6 wins. But if you're Western Kentucky, you almost feel like you need a 7th victory just to solidify it. So they go into the bye week. They come back. This defense is good, people. This Hilltoppers defense, I don't have the statistics in front of me, but I would say that they're easily the best one, or one of the best ones in Conference USA. And you could put them up against a lot of Power 5 teams and say that this team is good. Because, I mean, they beat a couple of teams. They beat Army, who was projected to be really good this season, and they beat a Power 5 team in Arkansas convincingly, 45-19. But they come back, have 2 Conference USA opponents to take on. They're trying to pick up that 7th victory just to solidify them going to a bowl game. They beat Southern Mississippi. They straight up beat them. Took over that game, tied at 7 in the first quarter. Score 14 points, go up 21-7. And you just felt like Southern Mississippi could just never move the football enough in that one. Which Southern Mississippi, they're a bowl-bound team too. So let's not forget about that. They had 7 victories going into that matchup. Western Kentucky then the following week, this past weekend, on rivalry week, they took on a down Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders team. Well, let's be honest. They're down this season. 4-8, they finished the season. But you had to come away with a victory. You felt like you had to make a statement in this game if you were Western Kentucky. And they went on Saturday 31-26. It was a tight one, but yet they still won. That is the important thing to take away. The seniors go out with a victory. They go to a bowl game now, 8-4. We're going to see where all of that goes after championship weekend this week. And Hilltoppers fans can once again be excited about their football program. It had been down the past couple of seasons. Now they get to go back to a bowl game, and things are looking promising down in Bowling Green. Man, are they looking promising down in Bowling Green. A season where you're basically rebuilding. Now, granted, this defense was doing some work, but the offense started to click a little more throughout this second half of the season as well. Once that offense gets up to the defensive level, oh my goodness. I have a feeling that Western Kentucky better be watching out because their head football coach is going to be pursued from a Power 5 conference here real soon if this trend continues to go the way it's going. Especially next year, if they can somehow get into double figures in the win category, maybe find themselves in the Conference USA championship game, maybe get a Conference USA championship, it's over. Their coach is he's gone. He's going to a Power 5 school. Especially the way what this Hilltoppers team looked like the past couple of seasons. They didn't look like they had belonged at the Division I level at times. They come back, and this coaching staff, I don't know what kind of magic they worked, but they are fantastic motivational speakers. That's all I got to say. Western Kentucky 8-4. They finished the season. Let's look at some of their stats from Saturday, actually. It's Ty Story, 23 of 30, 294 yards, one of his best days of the college football season, 2 touchdowns. Guys Walker did some work in the ground game, 14 carries, 119 yards, averaged 8.5 per carry, 1 touchdown on Saturday. Receiving numbers, Lucky Jackson, you were kind of wanting him to step up this season and make a big impact. And there was a couple of games where he did do that. He had 8 catches on Saturday, 110 yards, did have 1 touchdown as well. He averaged 13.8 per catch. Jernigan had 76 yards receiving off of 4 catches and had 1 touchdown as well on Saturday. So Western Kentucky finishing the season 8-4 with a 31-26 victory over Middle Tennessee. And I guess we will find out after this weekend where they go. Of course, all the conference championship games will be going on. We'll see where this Hilltoppers team ends up going, because I have a feeling that this team next year could be right there on the bubble of getting double digit win in the win column, that is. And if they're playing for a Conference USA championship game, win or lose, I'm kind of curious if, maybe their head football coach, Tyson Helton, gets pursued from a Power 5 team. I'm kind of wondering that. I don't want to see it, but we've seen it here in the history of WKU football over the last, 7-8 years. That when they start to win, their head football coach is usually being pursued by somebody just a little bit bigger than the team down in Bowling Green. That's just the way the college football landscape works. We'll see how it all works out. Trevor Rice with you. It's Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 on the AM side. You can also listen to us on ESPN Radio 1061.com. One more segment to go as we're going to talk about the Tennessee Titans and get you set, I guess, for Hardin County High School basketball, because that's coming up around the corner. Basketball on the boys and girls side. The Kentucky High School Basketball Hall of Fame Classic is going on this Saturday, in fact, already. And so all the teams are going to be in action in that. North Hardin, Central Hardin, John Hardin, and Elizabethtown. They'll all be in action in that. And let's come back and talk Tennessee Titans football right after this. It's Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio.
Hello again, everybody. I'm Mike Keith, voice of the Tennessee Titans, and you're listening to Heartland Sports Live with Trevor Rice on 106.1 ESPN Radio.
One more time.
Hey, welcome back in one more time to Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 on the AM side, also live streaming on ESPN Radio 1061.com. As we have talked about, we've wrapped up the high school football season here in Hardin County. North Hardin losing to Trinity on Friday night. We discussed that in segment 1. Also got into college football talk with Louisville versus Kentucky. Western Kentucky also last segment as well. You can go back and download every show. We'll upload it tomorrow on ESPN Radio 1061.com. I will send the show away so they can get it uploaded. And then also you can go and listen to it, download it as well off of the Apple Podcast link that I have on my Twitter account at Radio Trevor Rice. You can go back and download every show and listen to it on the go as we get set for basketball season now. We'll talk more in depth about the high school basketball season come next week as the Kentucky High School Basketball Hall of Fame Classic is going on this Saturday. Of course, all of the area teams will be participating in that one as we real quick look at that going on this Saturday. All right, here's the times. 2 p.m. It'll be Elizabethtown and Washington County. Then at 4 p.m. will be Christian County versus John Hardin. All these games being played at Central Hardin High School, by the way. Then at 6 p.m. will be Clinton County versus North Hardin. And the nightcap, 7:30 p.m., my guess is that'll be pushed probably to 8. It'll be North Bullitt at Central Hardin is how it is going to all be concluded. So all the area basketball teams on the boys' side will be participating in that. That's the Kentucky High School Basketball Hall of Fame Classic going on this Saturday at Central Hardin High School. Recommend you go over there. Should be a lot of fun basketball on Saturday. Let's talk about the Tennessee Titans before we part ways today, though. On the NFL side, the Titans finally getting that elusive victory over the Indianapolis Colts, dropping the Colts to 500. And the Tennessee Titans now up to 7-5. Yes, we're a couple of games above 500. Where does December land to the team overall? Still 4 games to go. Can they finish 11-5? Maybe. They play the Raiders this week, 4:25 out west this Sunday. Then they play against the Texans. That's going to be a big one because the Texans, I believe, are 8-4 now. and they are leading the AFC South. But the Titans could make things a little interesting if they beat the Raiders this week and then possibly beat the Texans next week in Nashville. We'll see. Let's talk about this 31-17 victory yesterday, though. The Tennessee Titans improving to 7-5. Ryan Tannehill was pretty efficient. Didn't go crazy deep down the field. 17 of 22, 182 yards on Sunday, 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry had a big day as he had 5.7 yards per carry off of 26 carries, 149 yards total rushing yesterday with 1 touchdown. And on the receiving end, A.J. Brown led all receivers, 3 catches, 45 yards. Khalif Raymond had 1 catch, 40 yards, had 1 touchdown yesterday. Corey Davis, 1 grab as well for 23 yards, as it was the Tennessee Titans defeating the Indianapolis Colts 31-17. Colts action, Jacoby Brissett, 25 of 40, 319 yards, had 1 touchdown, 2 INTs that came at big points in the game. Jordan Wilkins, 11 carries, 47 yards on Sunday as well, as Hines had 4 carries for 22 yards, 1 touchdown yesterday for the Colts backfield. Zach Pascal had a big game for the receiving numbers. 7 catches, 109 yards, 15.6 per catch. Jack Doyle getting in some action as well, putting up some reasonable fantasy numbers for a tight end yesterday. 6 catches, had 73 yards, did have that 1 touchdown as well. And then Marcus Johnson had 4 catches as well for 55 yards. So the Titans improving to 7-5 on the season with a 31-17 victory over the Colts. And now look ahead to an Oakland Raiders squad who we're going to see what goes on this Sunday out west. You would expect the Titans, who have I would think, the better defense, to come away on top in that one. But just when you think the Titans are on their winning ways, they lose a game that they probably shouldn't have, which I don't really expect them to lose this game. They should win it, I would think. Just to me, the Titans just have a better team overall, the way that they're playing right now. Then they take on the Texans. Let's look at these last 4 games of the season because they play the Texans twice. Those are going to be really important games. They play the Raiders and the Texans at home. Then they play the Saints at home on December 22nd. And then they will play the Texans on the road to wrap up the season. So, I mean, we're going to see. But I really expect that the Titans are going to be... They should be favored, I would think, in the next 2 possibly. They may have the Texans favored against the Titans, but I would expect the Titans to keep that one really close. If they can contain Deshaun Watson and not allow him to escape the pocket and make him a pocket passer, it's his legs that I'm worried about with this Titans club more than anything. So we'll see how it all goes down over the next few weeks. The Raiders this Sunday, 4:25. You'll be able to catch that game here on 106.1 ESPN Radio and 1400 AM as we'll see if the Titans can continue their winning ways. Right now, they have won 3 straight. 3 straight. Let's keep the winning streak going against the Raiders this Sunday. Trevor Rice with you. It's Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 AM. We are also live streaming on ESPN Radio 1061.com. That will do it for me as I will be back next Monday. 5 until 6. We're going to talk about everything that has happened, not only in, I guess, the football scene with the Titans and such, but we're going to talk more basketball next Monday, 5 until 6, as we get into Hardin County play. Of course, the Kentucky Basketball Hall of Fame Classic is going on this Saturday. Again, Central will be in the nightcap at 8 p.m. Then the Panthers will tip things off at 2 p.m. North Hardin will play that day. I took the schedule down in front of me. I know John and North play at some point, but just know that there's games at 2, 4, 6, and 8 p.m. roughly this Saturday for the Kentucky High School Basketball Hall of Fame Classic. Central Hardin High School, if you're looking to go, that is where all of the action will be. I'll be back next Monday, though. It's Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 AM, and we also live stream every show on ESPN Radio 1061.com. Have a fantastic sports week. We'll see you next Monday.